What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in, and today we're going to be talking about the Trump administration's new rule about asylum. But first,
if you would like to support this channel, please consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. And not only will you help support more videos like this, but you will gain access to exclusive video clips, our members-only Discord, as well as other perks. So please go to www.patreon.com/nuancebro to become a patron today.
so on Thursday, the Trump administration announced that it would be restricting the ability of those crossing illegally into the United States, the ability to seek asylum if they do so from the southern border. Now, as you know, a lot of times illegal immigrants cross into the United States through the southern border, and then once they are caught by Border Patrol agents or ICE officials, they declare asylum. It's often reported that human smugglers, also known as coyotes, actually coach the people that they are smuggling that once they come into the United States, if they are caught, they should declare asylum or say they fear for their lives back home, and that would allow them to stay within the United States.
Smugglers know how the system works. They game the system. They game it.
Now, if this rule goes into effect, it would effectively stop many people who do indeed come through the border illegally and then declare asylum, and it would actually force them to go through ports of entry and declare asylum in the new legal process. Now, this was issued Thursday, but today's Friday, and Trump is supposed to issue a presidential proclamation to make the rule effective. Now, the question is this legal? Well, the well-known American Civil Liberties Union says it's illegal. In an article from CNN, according to the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project's director, U.S. law specifically allows individuals to apply for asylum whether or not they are at a port of entry. It is illegal to circumvent that by agency or presidential decree. Now, Trump has already taken executive action with respect to refugees. Under President Obama, the ceiling for taking in refugees was 110,000. President Trump lowered those numbers to 30,000. And in fact, the number of refugees they have taken has actually been even lower than that number, around 22,000. Now, nobody disputes the power of the president to establish this ceiling or cap on refugees. But this new rule is being hotly contested right now in the media and legal circles, and people are saying that the United States president does not have the power to circumvent immigration law when it comes to seeking asylum. Now, if you remember, the Trump administration was actually sued for what people were calling Trump's Muslim ban, or that the Trump administration called their travel ban. And what was the ultimate conclusion of that case? Well, the case ultimately went up to the Supreme Court, and in a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration did have the power to issue that travel ban. Chief Justice John Roberts, who wrote the majority opinion, said, "The issue before us is not whether to denounce the statements. It is instead the significance of those statements in reviewing a presidential directive, neutral on its face, addressing a matter within the core of executive responsibility. In doing so, we must consider not only the statements of a particular president, but also the authority of the presidency itself." He also quoted a provision of immigration law that gives presidents the power to suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as the president sees necessary. The provision, he says, exudes deference to the president in every clause. Now, when the Chief Justice says the president has the power to suspend entry to all aliens, he's talking about a very specific part of the law. 8 U.S. Code Section 1182, Inadmissible Aliens. Now, if we scroll down, we can actually see the specific section that the Chief Justice was talking about. Subsection F, suspension of entry or imposition or restrictions by president. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. So that seems pretty clear, right? It's written right there in the code, and it seems like the president has an extreme amount of authority and flexibility on the issue of immigration. In fact, there's another Supreme Court ruling that actually talks about this issue as well. Knopf v. Shaughnessy. Now, this case dealt with a foreign-born woman who married a U.S. soldier, and under the War Brides Act, which allowed soldiers who decided to marry while they were, deployed overseas during World War II, to have their wives join them in the United States and, circumvent existing immigration law. However, in this case, The foreign-born person was of German descent, I believe, and the Attorney General determined that it was against the national security interests of the United States to let this person in. So when she came to Ellis Island, they detained her and ultimately stopped her from coming in. And the Supreme Court ruled in this case that even though there was the legislation of the War Brides Act, that there is no indication that Congress intended to permit members or former members of the armed forces to marry and bring into the United States aliens who the president, acting through the Attorney General in the performance of his sworn duty, found should be denied entry for security reasons. Now, if the power of the president didn't seem clear enough when I read the inadmissible alien section of the U.S. Code, well, let's look at the Asylum Code of the U.S. Code. 8 U.S. Code, Section 1158, Asylum. Now here it talks about authority to apply for asylum, and it lists you a bunch of reasons: safe third country, time limit, previous system applications, changed circumstances, applicability. But if we go down here, we can also see continuations for granting asylum, and it talks about eligibility, burden of proof. But here we go to exceptions, and it starts listing a bunch of exceptions here. And you can see, for example, in subsection 2, it talks about being convicted of a judgment of a serious crime that constitutes a danger to the community of the United States, and all these different other things. And now we go down to special rules. And under subsection 2, offenses, we can see that the Attorney General may designate by regulation offenses that will be considered to be a crime described in clause 2 or 3 of subparagraph A. So this means that the Attorney General basically has the power to redefine these two highlighted subsections. And additionally, if we go to C, which is additional limitations, it says the Attorney General may by regulation establish additional limitations and conditions consistent with this section, under which an alien shall be ineligible for asylum under paragraph 1. So even in addition to being able to sort of redefine those two subsections that I highlighted earlier, he can redefine basically this entire section over here with eligibility, burden of proof, etc. And then finally, here under subsection D, no judicial review. There shall be no judicial review of a determination of the Attorney General under subparagraph A. So basically it's saying that the Attorney General can make a determination and the courts have no authority to look over it whatsoever. So even if they wanted to sue, when it comes to at least this subsection that they're talking about, if it falls within that subsection, there is no judicial review allowed whatsoever. Now, in practice, can courts kind of review things anyways, even though it says no review? Well, courts can really kind of do whatever they want. I mean, they're the actual arbiters. I mean, who's going to be the judge on top of the judge? I guess you could say if it's a district court, it's the Circuit Court of Appeals, and if it's the Circuit Court of Appeals, then it's the Supreme Court. But ultimately, you can write a law, but the courts at the end of the day are going to be the ones that interpret it. So even if a law says that the courts can't, overlook it or overrule it or whatever, they still do at the end of the day. Now, keep in mind, as far as we know, this is very specifically tailored mainly just to Mexico, our southern border, and people crossing in illegally through there. They're saying that they have to go to the port of entries first along the border and basically apply through that process, which typically takes longer because those areas are a lot more cluttered up. But this doesn't apply to our northern border, it seems. It doesn't apply to people coming over on boats from places like Cuba and Haiti. It doesn't seem to apply to those. It seems very specifically tailored to the problem at the southern border. So we'll have to wait and see how specific they're going to get with this. And, once they're undoubtedly going to be sued by the ACLU and other groups and potentially even some states, and we'll see what comes of this. But to me, it seems like the president has the authority to do this. It doesn't seem like they're going, overboard at all. By the way, guys, last minute update. While I was editing this video, Trump actually made the announcement that he signed the order into effect. Here's the video.
I just signed the proclamation on asylum, very important. People can come in, but they have to come in through the ports of entry. And that, to me, is a very important thing. Again, I reiterate, we need Democrats' votes. They have to pass new immigration laws because they're flooding our country. We're not letting them in, but they're trying to flood our country. We need the wall. We're building the wall, but we need it all built at one time and quickly.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Support me on Patreon. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. And I'll see you next time, bro.